Welcome to the deep dive. You know that feeling, that deep human need to connect, to belong somewhere?
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, what if that feeling doesn't just stop with your family or friends? What if it reaches out, like across the whole world? This idea of finding a friend in all parts of the world. What if it's not just, a nice thought, but something actually built into us, something fundamental?
That's exactly the big idea we're digging into today. It's pretty fascinating.
So what's our main source here?
It's this really comprehensive report called Universal Friendship, AI-driven analysis. And what's cool is how it weaves together stuff from all over: biology, psychology, sociology, anthropology.
Wow, okay.
Yeah, even philosophy and environmental science. It's trying to build this unified picture of human connection.
Right. So our mission today is basically to unpack that. We want to explore the science behind this capacity for connection, right?
Exactly. And how it's shaped us historically, the good and the bad.
And look at the forces that kind of push against it and what it all means for all of us, for the future.
We're going to trace it right back to its origins, inside us. How vital it is for just feeling okay individually, but also for society working well.
And there's a link to nature, too.
Oh, yeah. Really deep link with the natural world. Often overlooked, actually. So it's a journey from your inner wiring out to the global scale.
Okay, so where do we start? How do we get into this idea that it's innate?
Well, the report goes right to the core, arguing this drive for connection, for finding friends broadly, isn't just a preference. It's fundamental, like needing food or water.
As basic as that?
Yeah. Think about Maslow's hierarchy of needs, that pyramid.
Sure. Food, safety at the bottom.
Right. And love and belonging is right there in the middle, a foundational psychological need. Can't really get to the higher levels like self-esteem or self-actualization without it.
So it's not optional for being fully human?
Not according to this view, no. It's essential, a must-have.
And evolution plays a role here too, I assume.
Big time. Early humans, the ones who bonded strongly in groups, they just did better. Protection, sharing food, working together.
Standard survival stuff.
But the report pushes it further. It says extending that bonding beyond your immediate group, connecting with diverse groups, gave even bigger advantages. It allowed for larger, more complex societies.
Ah, okay. So it wasn't just about the tribe, but connecting between tribes, potentially.
Sort of, yeah. This capacity for broad-scale cooperation, it's not just a nice side effect of evolution. It's arguably why humans flourished the way we did. It's in the blueprint.
And this blueprint, it shows up in our biology, physically.
Well, yes. The report highlights this really interesting connection between our social lives and our actual brain size.
How so?
There's strong evidence that human brain size correlates with the size of our social groups. The bigger the group, the bigger the brain, generally speaking.
So managing all those relationships, that actually drove our brains to get bigger.
That's the idea. The cognitive demands, remembering who's who, understanding intentions, cooperating, empathizing it, required more brain power. It fueled the development that allows for complex learning, language, empathy.
Wow. So fostering broader networks now, like making connections globally, that could actually be good for our brains collectively.
That's the implication. It's not just a social nicety. It could be stimulating cognitive development, enhancing our collective smarts. Our brains seem wired to expand through connection.
Okay, so connection builds us up. What about the flip side? What happens when it's missing? Loneliness.
Right. And the report reframes loneliness in a really powerful way. It's not just a sad feeling. It's described as an evolutionary warning signal.
Like hunger pangs or feeling thirsty.
Exactly like that. It's your system telling you a fundamental social need isn't being met.
And the consequences are serious.
Oh, definitely. Lack of connection isn't just linked to loneliness and depression. It's tied to actual physical health problems, lower immunity, even reduced lifespan.
So loneliness is actually a public health issue.
A significant one, yeah. Which means promoting connection, universal connection, is essentially preventative healthcare. It's vital.
And the key ingredient for that connection.
Yeah.
You mentioned empathy earlier.
Yes, the report calls it the cornerstone, the absolute foundation for building relationships and social bonds.
And there are different kinds?
They distinguish cognitive empathy, that's like understanding someone else's perspective, what they might be thinking.
Okay.
And emotional empathy, which is more about feeling with them, resonating with their emotions.
And science can actually see this happening in the brain.
Yeah, pretty clearly now. Neuroscientists talk about the mirror neuron system. Think of it like your brain simulating what another person is doing or feeling.
So you kind of mentally mimic them.
In a way, yes. And other areas, like the anterior cingulate cortex, light up when we see someone else in distress. It creates this shared neural experience.
Okay, this is where it gets really interesting for the universal part.
Mm-hmm.
Does this brain wiring work across cultures?
That's the fascinating claim. These neural mechanisms seem to provide a universal biological foundation for connection that can transcend cultural barriers. That mirror system doesn't necessarily care about background. It simulates experience.
So our brains have a built-in bridge for connecting with anyone.
It seems we have the capacity, yeah, like a universal language our bodies understand, even if our spoken languages differ.
But that raises a huge question, doesn't it? If we're all wired for this empathy, why are there still so many divisions? So many barriers?
That's the million-dollar question, really. How do we activate this potential? How do we nurture it across cultures, especially when, how we show empathy can look really different?
Right, expressing it varies, so it's about bridging biology and learned behavior.
Exactly. And the report really hammers home how critical that bridge is for our well-being. Threats to our social connections. They activate the same brain regions as basic survival threats.
Seriously? Like seeing a predator?
Yeah. Or extreme hunger. Social isolation triggers those same stress pathways. Your body literally reacts like its existence is threatened.
Wow, that really underlines how fundamental connection is. It's not just psychological, it's deeply physiological.
Absolutely. It's woven into our survival instincts.
Okay, so that's the science foundation. How does this play out in the real world, in societies? The report must look at history, right?
Oh, yeah. It dives deep into how this capacity for connection has shaped us. Sometimes for incredible progress, sometimes, well, not so much.
Let's start with the positive. When we lean into this connection thing, what happens?
You see these amazing flowerings of cooperation, innovation, understanding across groups.
Like what? Give me some examples.
Well, think about the Silk Road. It wasn't just about trading silk and spices, right?
Ideas travel too.
Huge amounts. Science, math, medicine, astronomy knowledge flowed between completely different civilizations. And you see it today, too, in big international science projects like studying the poles or mapping the human genome.
And specific breakthroughs often come from people working together across cultures.
Definitely. The report mentions people like Ramanujan from India, working with Hardy in the UK, Einstein from Germany with Grossman from Switzerland. Even the discovery of DNA involved scientists from the US, UK, New Zealand. It takes diverse perspectives.
And it's not just science, is it? Art and culture, too.
Absolutely. The Silk Road also spread art, crafts, music. Think of the European Renaissance. It didn't stay in Italy. The ideas spread everywhere.
Art as a connector.
Yeah, even as a diplomatic tool sometimes. And art movements often borrow and blend ideas from different cultures. It's a constant exchange.
And trade routes themselves, beyond the goods, they connected people and ideas.
Fundamentally, ancient routes transformed societies by moving not just goods, but technologies, religions, ways of thinking. Cities like Venice or Singapore are basically monuments to cross-cultural exchange.
Okay. And what about diplomacy? More than just treaties.
Yeah, the report talks about people-to-people diplomacy, grassroots interactions, exchanges, ways to break down stereotypes and build actual friendships across borders, like the Lewis and Clark expedition, building relationships with indigenous tribes.
So if you pull all that together, what's the pattern?
The pattern seems really clear. More global connection tends to drive innovation and creativity. And that innovation often creates new ways to connect, which speeds things up even more. It's like a positive cycle.
A virtuous cycle of connection and progress.
Exactly. And then there's humanitarian aid. The report sees this as universal empathy made concrete.
How so? Based on its principles.
Right. Principles like humanity, helping people wherever they are suffering. Impartiality, helping based only on need, no discrimination. These codify universal empathy.
So that impartiality, it specifically cuts across group loyalties.
It has to. It reinforces the idea that every human life has equal value, regardless of where they're from or what group they belong to.
So when you formalize universal friendship like that, you can get big things done.
You can get large-scale, coordinated action that genuinely crosses borders and divides. It's the ideal put into practice.
Okay, that's the inspiring side. But we know history isn't all cooperation. What about the dark side, the division, the conflict?
Right, and that's the paradox, isn't it? That same deep need to belong, to affiliate, can get twisted. It can lead to favoring your own group, in-group bias, and hostility towards outsiders, the outgroup.
Why does that happen?
Well, the report mentions theories like competition for resources if we think they're taking our stuff, and also social identity theory, the psychological drive to feel good about our group, often by comparing it favorably to others.
And prejudice.
Yeah.
It's learned, right, or reinforced.
Yeah, through social learning, conformity, wanting to fit in, plus psychological tricks we play on ourselves, like scapegoating or thinking our group is inherently superior ethnocentrism.
So this tendency is always there, a potential challenge to global friendship.
It seems to be. The goal isn't to erase group identity, obviously, but to stop that process of othering, of seeing other groups as less human or as threats.
And this vulnerability, this us versus them thinking, people can exploit that.
Ruthlessly. The report really stresses how political rhetoric can play on our deepest values and fears, using polarization, emotional appeals, dodgy logic, all to create division.
So our need to belong can actually be weaponized.
Tragically, yes. Sometimes leading to horrific outcomes like systematic attempts to destroy other cultures. It really shows why things like media literacy and critical thinking are so vital as defenses. And ethical leadership, of course.
History has examples of this cultural conflict.
Sadly, many. The report mentions things like the harsh treatment of Irish immigrants in 19th century America, fueled by anti-Catholic prejudice, or the Ku Klux Klan's rise, often linked to economic fears about immigrants taking jobs.
So economic anxiety often pours fuel on the fire.
It seems to be a frequent factor, yes. Perceived threats to resources often trigger that anti-immigrant or anti-cultural backlash.
And what about deliberate attempts to erase cultures? Forced assimilation.
Yes, the report cites grim examples like the residential schools for Indigenous children in Canada and the U.S., designed to stamp out their languages and cultures. It's happened globally, suppression of minority cultures in various countries, sometimes even targeted destruction of cultural heritage like libraries or historical sites during conflicts.
That link between economic anxiety and aggression seems really crucial then.
Absolutely. The report suggests that tackling economic inequality and ensuring fair access to resources is actually key to reducing this kind of conflict. It's not just about changing minds, it's about changing conditions.
And leaders manipulating identity. How does that work?
By constantly reinforcing that us versus them divide, propaganda often plays on our instinct to protect our own group, sometimes called parochial altruism, and be hostile to outsiders, especially if we're made to feel threatened.
So if people are constantly fed narratives of existential threat,
Then that instinct for universal connection gets shut down. Survival mode kicks in, prioritizing the in-group above all else. Rational discussion becomes almost impossible.
and the report mentions specific tactics.
Yeah, using emotional appeals, logical fallacies, and repetition to basically distort reality, exploit our biases, and just sow distrust. Trust in institutions, in objective facts, gets eroded, making cross-cultural understanding incredibly difficult.
Okay, and then there's another angle.
Yeah.
Globalization, it connects us more, but
But it also brings concerns about cultural homogenization, the worry that unique local traditions and practices get swamped or lost in a kind of global monoculture.
which can make people feel like they're losing their identity.
Exactly, a diminished sense of identity and belonging. And related to this is cultural appropriation, borrowing symbols or practices without understanding or respect, which can cause real hurt.
So the goal isn't for everyone to become the same.
Not at all. The report makes a fascinating point here. True global friendship shouldn't mean uniformity. It has to be about appreciating and preserving diversity.
Unity in diversity.
That's the challenge, isn't it? How to benefit from global interaction without losing the unique cultural richness that makes humanity interesting.
This brings us to another dimension. The report covers our connection not just to each other, but to the planet itself.
Yes, this idea of universal connection extends to the natural world. It talks about ecological interconnectedness, how all living things and their environment are linked, totally interdependent.
And that non-human life has value in itself.
An intrinsic value, yeah. Not just for what it does for us. But that said, we are also fundamentally reliant on what ecosystems do for us.
Like clean air, clean water.
Purifying water, detoxifying waste, regulating the climate, regenerating soil, maintaining biodiversity. The list is long. We literally can't survive without these services.
So connecting the dots, our well-being depends entirely on the planet's health.
Inextricably linked. Environmental stewardship isn't just, a nice green hobby. The report frames it as a moral imperative for our own survival.
Yeah.
Long-term human flourishing depends on healthy ecosystems. Period.
But we're disrupting those systems, aren't we?
Massively. Climate change, biodiversity loss, pollution, ocean acidification. These aren't future problems. They're here now, posing serious threats to human health and well-being.
The report mentions planetary boundaries. What's that?
It's a concept identifying 9 critical Earth system processes that keep the planet stable for humans. The scary part, we've already transgressed the safe limits for 6 of them.
6 out of 9. That sounds bad.
It signals potentially irreversible damage. And we see the impacts already. Climate change causing more extreme weather, heat waves, floods, leading to humanitarian crises. It's projected to cause hundreds of thousands of extra deaths each year soon, just from things like malnutrition, infectious diseases, heat stress.
So this environmental breakdown, it affects everyone. No one's immune.
Exactly. Environmental degradation doesn't respect borders. We're all vulnerable. We're all, in a sense, victims of our collective impact.
Which makes cooperation essential.
It powerfully reinforces the need for universal cooperation. This shared vulnerability should, theoretically, unite us to tackle these global threats together. Our shared fate demands a shared response.
Okay, so we've seen the science, the history, the environmental links. Given all this, how do we actually do it? How do we cultivate this universal connection? What are the strategies?
It's definitely a multi-layered approach. A big piece is fostering global empathy and understanding, and education is just fundamental there.
Preparing the next generation.
Exactly. Equipping them for an interconnected world. Promoting things like global citizenship, cultural competence, critical thinking skills, and empathy.
How do schools do that effectively?
Well, things like multicultural curricula, using case studies that make students think critically and feel empathy, creating real opportunities to interact with people from different backgrounds.
And media literacy seems key, too, to fight misinformation.
Crucial. Education can build that foundation so kids naturally develop the capacity to, find friends everywhere.
And alongside education, tolerance, diversity.
Absolutely vital. Not just putting up with difference, but genuinely appreciating and respecting it. That's how you bridge divides and foster real cooperation.
And how do we promote that?
Things like cultural exchange programs, interfaith dialogues, positive social media campaigns. But the report stresses true tolerance isn't passive. It requires active engagement, empathy, a real willingness to understand others. That active appreciation encourages people to connect.
Makes sense. What about leadership, governance?
Indispensable. The report outlines qualities needed for ethical global leadership. Open-mindedness, cultural intelligence, empathy, strategic thinking, adaptability, self-awareness.
And core principles.
Things like integrity, honesty, accountability, respect, fairness, transparency, social responsibility. Using power ethically, leaders need to challenge their own biases, address power imbalances.
And when leaders model that?
They build trust across groups. They create psychological safety, which makes collaboration possible. Leaders who exploit identity, they destroy that trust.
And how should societies be governed to support this?
The ideal is governance built on transparency, accountability, and broad participation. Inclusivity, making sure all voices are heard. Structures respond to diverse needs.
So actively including different groups, addressing inequalities.
Right. It directly counters that us versus them dynamic by valuing difference as a strength and focusing on the well-being of everyone.
Okay, finally, what about raising kids?
Yeah.
Nurturing the next generation.
The report talks about holistic child development, physical, social, mental, spiritual. The social-emotional piece is key here. Emotional well-being, identity, cooperation, interacting well with others.
And how do we foster that?
Through activities like role-playing, storytelling, talking about feelings, creative play, sensory experiences, lots of time outdoors in nature, nurturing emotional intelligence and cultural awareness early on builds that capacity for global friendship right from the start.
And making them aware of the wider world.
Yeah, exposing them thoughtfully to diversity. Through books, films, food, music, festivals, maybe learning languages, travel if possible, community service.
Experiential learning seems powerful.
Incredibly so. Even simulated experiences can boost empathy and challenge stereotypes. Cooking a meal from another culture, learning a few words of another language, simple things can spark curiosity and understanding.
So wrapping this all up, this deep dive really shows that finding a friend in all parts of the world isn't just some lofty dream.
No, it feels more like a biological imperative, doesn't it? And a societal necessity. It's woven deep into our human experience.
We've looked at the science, the history, the good and the bad, the vital link with nature, and concrete ways to actually cultivate it.
And we have to be realistic about the challenges, right? Our own biases, the manipulation we see, the pressures towards homogenization, they're powerful forces.
But the core message from the report seems optimistic, that our innate capacity for connection is strong.
I think so. It's just the potential is definitely there, within us and between us.
Which leaves us and you, our listener, with a final thought. In a world that often seems to amplify division, how can each of us consciously activate that innate capacity for universal connection?
Yeah, not just because it feels good or is good for us, but maybe as a deliberate act. An act of global stewardship, of pushing towards progress.
So the question to ponder is, what's one small step you could take, maybe even today, to help foster a friend in all parts of the world?
This is DigitView.